Astro Bot Worries Me. And before we continue, I want to make it very clear, this review is not negative. I think this game is really good, but at the very same time, there are certain things about the game that worry me. So, let's get into it. And you may be wondering, what exactly worries me? Because the game looks great. The game looks like it plays great. And it seems like something you'd like, you may be thinking. And you're right. That's not what worries me in the slightest. It's actually something more corporate. With the recent horrible failure of Concord, weirdly enough. In case you missed it or don't know what Concord is a game that Sony recently released. It is also a game that Sony recently unreleased, since it did horribly. Like, it literally could not reach 700 players, given those numbers are just on Steam alone. But considering the final hours of this game's life, it had a whopping 52 players. Yeah, no. And you may be wondering what this has to do with Astro Bot, a game that conveniently released the exact same day Concord unreleased. And again, I do not blame you if you're wondering what these two games have to do with each other. But the answer is actually why Concord failed. And that's because it was corporatized. It was basically everything people didn't want to see in a game. And people are really hoping that Sony and other corporations will take that message, we don't want games like this. But if that means Sony's listening in sales numbers, that's worrying. Because Astro Bot is doing really well. And how is it exactly a really good game that you want people to support doing well a bad thing? And that is fair. But I'm worried Sony is a stupid corporation who will not understand why people like this game. Because I'm worried that the message Sony will take away from this game is that people like it when they use their IP. Because this game is chock full of hundreds of iconic or pre-existing PlayStation characters and characters who have been heavily associated with PlayStation. And I do not want Sony's takeaway to be people bought this game because our pre-existing IP was in it. That people like Astro Bot because Aloy from Horizon or Kratos from God of War were in this game. That is not why people like this game. And that is not what I want Sony to take away from it. But corporations notoriously usually think wrong. Again, this is the same company that thought spending who knows how much and 8 years of development on Concord and a third of their presentation on it was a good idea to only immediately get negative reception and decide to not back down. And the thing is, me and many others could have told you the moment we saw Concord that it was going to fail. So I'm really worried that Sony's takeaway will be the licensing thing, and that they'll be like, okay, so if we make Concord again, but use Kratos, Aloy, all of our licensed characters instead of original IP, it will do much better. And yeah, things with licensed IP will sell better. But at the same time, there's only so many things you can do with the same IPs. And if the game isn't good, the sales still aren't going to be great. Smash Bros. Is successful not only because it's a celebration of gaming as a whole, but also because it is a really fun and incredibly well-made game. If it wasn't fun, but had the same roster, sure, it'd be popular, but I don't think it'd be nearly as popular or successful as it is, let alone have as many people be excited for a new entry or have as many sequels. Compare that to both Astro's Playroom and Astro Bot, where you can remove all licensed characters, all licensed IP, and the game would not be changed that much. Yeah, maybe it would do slightly worse and it'd be missing a handful of levels, but for the most part, the game stands on its own completely without any need for pre-existing IP. They are there because they're cute as a collectible. And this game is a celebration of PlayStation and its history. But they aren't necessary. And again, yes, the game would technically be a little worse. There were a couple that really put a smile on my face. For example, I love the location of Joker, since they put him at the end of the casino level. That's cute. That is something they did not need to do. They could have put him in any level, yet they went out of their way to put him in a level that fits with Persona 5. Another great one is the Shadow of Colossus section. More accurately, the reference to the character, who is literally on top of a giant. That's just cute. Anyway, on to the review. First off, this game is fantastic. I have been asking for this since I first played Astro's Playroom when I got my PlayStation 5, and this is exactly the kind of thing I was hoping we'd get. Because what both of these games are incredibly solid, incredibly charming, and incredibly well-made 3D platformers. Also known as, specifically, what I've been asking Nintendo to do for the last, 2 or 3 years! And yes, I know that video came out this year, but that was more so me finally accepting, hey, they have not been making things that are quality, that are charming, that are what I want from this company in a couple years now. So that's more where I finally got to the point of I'm going to make a video, not me be saying this behind closed doors in private. But yeah, the game is super cute. Your save files are themed around PlayStation memory cards. So many things in this game are cute. Hell, there's rope tethers. Those are freaking PS2 or PS1 controller cords. I don't know the difference between those two, I'm gonna be honest. But even ignoring the PlayStation adjacent and PlayStation iconography, it's still really cute. There's a level where you clean up garbage to help turtles. There's so many just cute, adorable things. The animations are great. There's so many small attention to details. It is insane to me that this game was made by only 60 people, considering how many tiny things are in here. Genuinely, there are so many just small, tiny animations that make so much. They add so much. Small details. Hell, even the names of levels are charming. That's one of the best parts about this game. It knows what it is and knows what it wants to be. And it excels amazingly at both of those aspects. And that's not saying the game doesn't try new things. In fact, it does. But when it does try new mechanics or new aspects that are a bit different than what you'd expect from this type of game, it makes sure they are still grounded in Astro's core moveset and expansions of it. Because all of the power-ups are amazing. We'll get to those in a minute, but even at that, Astro's core moveset, while being the exact same as in Playroom, is still really fun. The hover is a great way to navigate around certain obstacles, albeit it slows you in speed and slowly descends. Astro's core moveset, aside from that, is just punching, spinning, and jumping. It's nothing exceptional or unique, especially given its contemporaries like something like Mario Odyssey, but at the same time, while they're much simpler, all of those moves feel great to use. And that's before we talk about the power-ups and transformations, which are incredible. Almost all of them, I'd say, are equivalent to some of the best power-ups in anything like a Mario game. They legitimately made a water level where I preferred traversing underwater than on land because of how fun it was to control with that power-up. You do not understand how insane that is, that they made a water level where I'd prefer being in the water. And I definitely should have mentioned this earlier when I was talking about some of the charm stuff, but I remembered it while making this section, and they are so willing to change up the art style on everything but Astro, which is great. There are multiple levels that use a more blocky voxel aesthetic, even to the point of changing how the coins and collectibles look. And while we're talking about level stuff, the levels are done in a great way. They are relatively linear, and you can get to where you're going relatively quickly. But there is so much to explore. Main levels usually have about 5 to 7 bots and 2 to 3 puzzle pieces. So for a good chunk of levels, that is 10 collectibles you have to go out of your way to find. And for most of them, if not all, they're not too unrealistic or hard to find. They are out of the way, but if you're paying attention, you can find them. You really don't need to look up where any of these are. And if you do need a little help, if you come back to a level after completing it for the first time, there's a little bird you can summon for 200 coins that will act as a collectible detector, beeping and pointing out collectibles you've missed. That, and returning from Astro's Playroom, the gotcha machine, means there's a great reason to go out of your way to collect coins, since you can either use them to help you find collectibles in levels you've already played, or use them to randomly get things like costumes, or props for your hub. Or in the case of costumes, you can just buy them with Digital Deluxe Edition. It has 3 of them. But also, here's a cool thing that I really appreciate. They aren't exclusive! You can earn them by playing the game! In fact, there's barely any content that is exclusive to the Digital Deluxe Edition, which is great. If you want to support the game and give it some extra money, or you're impatient and want to unlock some things early, you can. But if you don't want to do that, or financially can't, you're not missing out on any real content. Genuinely, this game is great, and it has so many things I am glad that it has. So many small touches. My main thing about this game is it is not worth buying a PS5 for, but if you already have one, it is a game that you should definitely pick up. That or wait 4 or 5 years for it to come to Steam. That also works. Either way, those are just my thoughts. What are yours? And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!